For what do we call a story based on limited real data, imagined data, and blend it into a coherent, emotionally satisfying version of reality? It's a conspiracy theory. Furthermore, writer Joseph Gottschall explains that ordinary, mentally healthy people are strikingly prone to confabulate in everyday situations. These confabulations aren't the cause of health or memory issues, but more the interplay of emotions, behavior, and thoughts. I want to talk about when you're dealing with that storm in your head, when you're going through that downward spiral, so to speak. We all have good days and bad days, but sometimes it feels like I'm going through what seems like my worst day. Someone said something that felt confronting to me. It was either online, at work, or at university. It made me feel really small, annoyed, humiliated, or put me on a state of shame. I freeze in the moment because I don't know how to react. It's almost like it's all too much, almost not quite real. Leaving is the easiest option, or finding somewhere to hide will do just fine for right now. I don't want to be seen by the people around me because they already know too much. And what's worse is when they see me again, they will remember this moment. Therefore I get away, or I just sit there and let the moment ruminate in my head, playing it over and over again on repeat. The rest of my day feels like a haze. I pretty much get nothing done because concentrating becomes a real struggle. If not the whole day, it's only taken me more than a few hours to calm myself down. When I eventually do get back into the swing of things, I think back to that moment and the story I built up in my mind. I want to clarify that what I am talking about and what I interpreted from such books as Rising Strong aren't about identifying patterns of abuse and harassment. If you suspect that you are being gaslit, then please reach out and get help, and get yourself into a safe situation. What I am going to discuss here is when insecurities get the best of you, and you become your own worst enemy. What can often happen is the experience that occurred internally afterwards can be a whole lot worse than the experience itself. The stories we make up can feel like an epic drama, when in actual fact, they were only quite small, and may have only lasted for a few minutes. In fact, to the people around us, it may have felt like nothing at all. They most likely have already forgotten about it and have already moved on. This is what Brené Brown refers to as conspiracies and confabulations. It may have just been a small passing comment that was said to me with not much context at all. I then amplified the meaning of the sentence, which is especially easy to do with a text or something online, building it into something much worse. Brené calls it the gremlins in our head, jumping back and forth in our minds, telling us things about ourselves that aren't true, spitting lies and deceit. Sometimes the work we do is a reflection of ourselves. That criticism can feel quite personal. Conspiring and confabulating is common with all of us. Sometimes the consequences can only appear to be negligible, although it is not at all the case. To conspire a story only a little can become a destructive pattern over time. And in some way, the slightest confabulation can damage our relationships and our self-worth. The stories we make up that can be the most dangerous are the stories that diminish our worthiness. Conspiratorial thinking isn't limited to the ignorant or the unwell. It is a reflection of the human storytelling mind, our compulsive need for meaningful experiences. Basically, conspiracy theories are used to explain why bad things happen, which is exactly the problem, because to a conspiratorial mind, shit never just happens. This is based on evolution, our brain's work of fear-based self-protection, and our intolerance for uncertainty. We know from a young age that if the fire burns us once, then we learn not to touch it again. Quite often correct in societal situations. It tells us who is with us and who is against us. The only problem is sometimes we start weaving these hidden, false narratives into our lives, forming patterns you expected there but may not actually exist. They eventually distort who we are and our relation with others, convincing us that those who are closest to us, like friends and family, may not be on our side. This is where our story comes back full circle. We are now back where we were before, when I ran away or hid to let the narrative play out over again in my mind. The unconscious storytelling becomes our default. We can keep tripping over the same issue, staying down where we fall, so to speak. We've got the story on repeat, and so the question stays the same. How do we get out of the downward spiral? There are ways to help you get out of this storm that has taken over your mind, and there are advantages to each process. First and foremost is having a friend or family member to call upon to talk it out. This is of course helpful because you know that person will always have your back and can empathize with you along the way. Often just the act of saying it out loud can calm us down because we can hear the story that we're exaggerating inside. When doing this, Brené explains the importance of starting your sentence to someone with the story that I am making up. She further explains how extremely helpful the phrase and the words that come after it can be. Like I mentioned, it creates the opportunity for some inner dialogue. It immediately discredits the story and allows you to pause and evaluate what you are thinking and feeling before even bringing it up with the other person. It allows you to speak honestly and candidly without the fear of generating a defensive response. Finally, the phrase is very disarming and almost always results in a productive conversation rather than a heated back and forth. Venting the story out to someone you know and trust is always easy when you have someone to call upon. But what do you do when the story involves them? Well, you just have to be vulnerable, approaching them as soon as possible and starting the sentence with the story that I'm making up. This means you can resolve the situation as soon and honestly as possible without letting it escalate into something so much bigger than it should be. The other process you can try is writing down your story. Don't try to be too technical or fancy. Just grab a notebook, piece of paper, or your laptop and just write down whatever is crowding your mind, letting it all pour out, knowing that no one is going to see it. Basically, what you're writing down doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. It can be bullet points if it makes it any easier, or just a simple paragraph. In Rising Strong, Brené says you can start sentences like this: the story I'm making up, my emotions, my thinking, my body, my actions, and my beliefs. James Pennebaker, author of Writing to Heal, explains how losing your job or going through a breakup can affect all aspects of our lives, financial situations, our relationships with others, and how we view ourselves. Writing can help us focus and organize ourselves. He believes that because our minds are designed to try and understand everything that happens to us, translating messy, difficult experiences into words on a page can essentially make them graspable. In fact, his research has shown that you only need to do a limited amount or short spurts for 15 to 20 minutes a day when you're going through an emotional upheaval. If you can do this for 4 consecutive days, then it can decrease anxiety, rumination, and depressive symptoms. That's all. It may not sound easy to some, but I promise, once in practice, it'll make you feel a whole lot better. Speaking to someone you know and trust, saying the story that I'm making up, and or writing it down. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. This video has taken me a lot of time and research, and I put a lot of heart into this, so it means a lot. Please like and comment below to really help this in the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet.